Hi guys, how's it going? Thank you for joining our webinar today. We will get started in the next 1 to 2 minutes. Thank you. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. We live in unusual times, but there does seem to be some light at the end of the tunnel as we enter the first phase of our reopening of Ireland, and many of you are perhaps planning on getting back into the office. For the vast majority of people, it will be remote working as usual. So today's webinar is timely and forms a series of our remote working webinars that we've run over the past few weeks. Today we'll focus on more of the more management administration aspects of managing a remote team. I'm going to be your host, Peter Hunt, and a little later on I'll be moderating the Q&A. A little bit of background on our speaker. Finian Nally brings 15 years of technology experience to his role at Action Point. He's a head of Microsoft Cloud Solutions at the company and works across the Microsoft practice in Action Point in Azure, Microsoft Office, and of course Windows Virtual Desktop. So he's well positioned to speak on today's topic. Before we hand over to Finian, I would just like to launch a quick poll and just to get some feedback, I guess, on some of the remote working challenges that people are facing. I'm going to cut my camera for that, and I will hand over to Finian in just a couple of seconds. So the poll: what is the biggest challenge you've experienced in delivering effective remote access to your team at short notice? Please select 1, additional cost, equipment licensing, etc. Increased IT support demands from end users, security concerns, poor performance, and or inability of existing infrastructure to scale to demand. So please take 15 to 20 seconds to take that poll. And without further ado, I'll hand over to today's speaker, Finian Nally.
That's great, Peter. Thanks very much. I'll just turn on my camera for a brief seconds just to show that I am working from home, similar to many of you out there, and I'm facing the same challenges as well. So really, as Peter mentioned, once we close off that poll there, we're going to go through a few key things today. We want to discuss, I suppose, the remote working challenges that are out there, and really, my conversations over the last few weeks, that we found that these challenges aren't just, present in the whole COVID-19 crisis. They've been present for a long time, but have been somewhat put on the back burner now. But these challenges have increased over the last number of months, but also will be something that will be here for the long term. So we'll discuss a bit about them. We'll then discuss at a high level what is Windows Virtual Desktop and Desktop as a Service, and go into some scenarios as to what that actually means for your business. We'll then go a little bit deeper, and we'll start to get a bit technical. We want to go under the hood and see what actually makes it sing, why it actually is so good. And after that, we'll zoom back out, then go into a quick demo to show you what it's like, what the end user experience is like, and how that impacts those scenarios. And lastly, we'll do a bit of Q&A. So that should be fairly comprehensive, but look, we'll aim to get wrapped up within 35, 40 minutes or so. So thinking about today's challenges, ultimately, what are we trying to do as businesses? And if we really distill it right down and try to simplify it, we have a number of employees who are working for us, who are providing the services to our clients, to our customers. And fundamentally, they need access to data and applications to do their job. So when we actually break it down, it is quite simple, what we're trying to do here. But the reality looks often an awful lot different. And when we look at, I suppose, IT setup for today's organizations, often we see something like what you see on the screen right now. Platforms that are good enough, different versions of operating systems, of Office, of applications, a lot of legacy systems in there, remnants of a number of years, key systems that still have to be in use because they just work and it's too costly to upgrade. Our technology strategy on devices is somewhat questionable. Different users have different devices, different phones, different laptops, different desktops. And we also have a lot of different security problems as well. We've put in spot security solutions here and there based on advice, but because security isn't our core focus, we're focusing on driving the business. We end up with this kind of mishmash of IT infrastructure, which really creates a challenge in simplifying how we deliver that, how we deliver our data, and how we deliver our applications to our end users. On top of that, we've actually compounded things dramatically over the last number of months. And really, I put it akin to remote working in 60 seconds. When Leo Varadkar did the announcement back in mid-March there, a lot of businesses simply weren't prepared for this. And many businesses had to go from 0% remote working to 100% in the space of 60 seconds or a few hours. And often that was done by, right, let's get laptops for everyone, let's set up a VPN solution, and great, we've remote access implemented. And even for businesses who had some level of experience or some level of infrastructure for remote working already, they were never expecting to deliver this at 100% scale. So we had many businesses going, right, we need to do the same scenario. We need to buy much, much more equipment. We need to install VPN licenses. And oh my God, we need to buy servers and we need to buy more infrastructure and create more complexity just to deliver that okay experience to our end users. So our staff were all shipped home and they were expected to work remotely. And the business said, yes, we're good. We're still able to operate. But really in that speed, in that, I suppose, way of doing things, we forgot about a lot of things. So first and foremost, we forgot about the end user experience. So often, both in existing and these newer remote working solutions, we've delivered a cumbersome connection process. It's not easy for the end user to connect and get access to their data and get access to their key apps. They're on equipment that they're not familiar with. And often they're on home networks where connection issues might be poor, or fundamentally the application and data that they're trying to access just really isn't suitable to be transmitted over a VPN or old style remote connections. So the end user experience is poor. We're left with a user who is working from home, but their productivity is down, and they're not enjoying actually doing this. We've also, in that same breath, forgotten about security and business risk. Again, the key goal has been, right, let's keep the business operational. Let's make sure we're giving everyone the tools, even though they may not actually work. But we now have people on home networks, on devices that we've given them, but we don't know who else is actually using those devices. So we've haven't implemented any extra layers of authentication for our end users. We're not really sure where corporate data is. Are people actually pulling that data down and then using their Gmail to share it with other colleagues, or using Dropbox to share it with customers? Are they then downloading, that we can't give them access to our CRM system, or it's quite slow to access our account system? So they're going off and they're starting to introduce new systems or new ways of doing things that simply, as a business, we have no way of seeing where our data is or seeing what's going on. And also the scale. As we've tried to scale out, has our infrastructure actually been able to match it? Have we said, okay, well, we have a firewall here that has a VPN solution and it can cope with up to 50 users, but we actually have 150 staff, or we've 2,000 staff, or 5,000 staff. And we're dealing with a lot of scaling issues due to legacy issues, cost issues that really have, not really scaled effectively, and ultimately have impacted on our overall budget because we've had to throw more resources at them for a very, very short space of time. But ultimately, that the solution hasn't been very effective. And often we get asked, well, why didn't we consider this previously? Why didn't we have a solution in place that was fit for purpose, that we could adapt, be scalable, be ready to go straight out of the gate? With the benefit of hindsight, we would say, well, yeah, we wish we had that. And if we look at, okay, well, what could we have done? Well, maybe we could have introduced a VDI solution, a virtual desktop infrastructure solution. The reality with those type of solutions is they often have a long lead time, can be extremely expensive from a CapEx point of view, also are limited flexibility. You're building a solution that you're investing in for 3 to 6 years, but you're trying to predict where you're going to be in that, maybe that 5 to 6 year bracket, and you have those layers and layers of complexity and management on top of that. Likewise with our applications, specifically our legacy applications, to go to the effort and the time of modernizing those applications meant that, ultimately when we looked at our budget and the effort involved, not only from a budget point of view, but from a project management point of view, it just simply wasn't worth it. So both in terms of the VDI solution and application modernization, it wasn't practical for many, many businesses to look at that. So even though the benefit of hindsight is great, the reality is the solutions that have been in market for a long, long time and the ways of doing things probably weren't as appropriate for our business. So that's when we introduced Windows Virtual Desktop. So fundamentally, what is Windows Virtual Desktop? So it's delivering the best virtual experience in the cloud. So it's delivering all your data, all your applications centralized in the cloud, meaning all those layers and layers of complex infrastructure are dramatically simplified. The end user experience is dramatically simplified, and it is the only solution that delivers a true Windows 10 experience. So if we look at many of the VDI solutions that are out there in market right now, often they are reskinned versions of servers or different ways of doing things. And from an end user point of view, their experience just isn't like working in the office or being on a device as normal. With Windows Virtual Desktop, we're delivering that true Windows 10 experience because it is Windows 10. We're also able to do a lot more better. We're able to deliver remote working a lot better. For example, we're able to eliminate VPN solutions back to our legacy on-premise infrastructure. That complex, cumbersome process is no longer needed. All our applications and data are available at any time. And it means now we have centralized management. We're able to manage things centrally versus the era of looking at individual desktops, of installing applications for individual users and taking a lot of time to do that. And fundamentally as well, security is built in. It's not added on. Often we see many, many solutions out there where security is an afterthought and is something that we have to bolt on at the end. With Windows Virtual Desktop, security is built in from the ground up. So to look at that in a little bit more detail, some of the key selling points here, some of the key features in it here. Windows Virtual Desktop is platform agnostic. So in other words, I can come in from my laptop, my desktop, my iPhone, my tablet, my Linux device. Once I have a browser, I can access Windows Virtual Desktop, meaning I can get access to all of my data and all my applications wherever I am and whatever device I'm on. It also means that I'm taking advantages of those security features. So I'm having the ability to containerize and centralize my user data. I'm also leveraging the ability of not opening up ports into the wild so that our environment can easily get attacked or get breached. If we look at some of the key scenarios, I think this will help explain, where Windows Virtual Desktop fits in a lot better. So some of the key ones we come across on a regular basis: legacy applications and even sometimes more modern applications as well, both the management and delivery of those applications. So if we think about that, okay, what's the process for maybe our accounts package or maybe our ERP system or something like that? Well, we buy a server or multiple servers, we have to install that on it. We then have to go to our individual desktops and laptops, install various applications on that, make sure those applications are kept up to date. When the vendor releases a new version, download that. Often we can't test it because we're limited by the infrastructure that we have, and we have to go around to end users, schedule time with them. So it can be very, very complex, very, very cumbersome. And even thinking about our end users coming in over VPN solutions, many legacy applications simply won't work over a VPN, or the performance is just too sluggish. With Windows Virtual Desktop, we're actually able to deliver or keep delivering those legacy applications, or those applications that involve a lot of ongoing maintenance and management, but we're able to do that centrally. We install and configure it once, so we configure it on the Windows Virtual Desktop environment. We don't need to worry about the end user's laptop or desktop or whatever the device they're coming in on. It is the same experience throughout, and that is key to it, that we're giving that end user that great experience. Our management is centralized, but also we now have the ability to test applications and deliver different versions of applications. So if we're in a scenario where it's coming close to end of year and I need my 2019 version of my accounts package and my 2020 20 version of my accounts package side by side, we're able to deliver that with Windows Virtual Desktop. Likewise, if we have some other key line of business system, ERP, CRM, whatever that system may be, and the manufacturer has released a new version of it, we're able to test that version in line with their legacy version without disrupting end users. You know, we can have a pool of people saying, listen, will you test this application? You still have access to the normal one that everyone else has access to, but we want you to test this and make sure that the upgrade is working or that the new features are working. So it allows us to give very, very granular control and very easy control of our applications and how they are delivered to the end user. And we no longer have to worry about, you know, the headaches of managing on-premise infrastructure, the headaches of upgrading that application on a consistent basis, and as well as that, the headaches of the complaints from the end users going, well, my application isn't working because I'm working from home. As well as that, Windows Virtual Desktop addresses the device challenge. And I alluded to it at the start when we said, okay, we've delivered remote working in 60 seconds. And for many, many users, we've given them a device that simply they're not familiar with. But we also have the other side of the coin where there's an expectation from end users that I should have access to all my data, all my applications, regardless of where I am. And I think that expectation comes from the consumer side. You know, if I'm using Netflix, if I'm using Gmail, if I'm using Disney Plus or any of these kind of modern consumer applications, I have an expectation straight away that it'll work on my mobile device, my laptop, whatever device I have an expectation that it'll work. And often when we come into the business world, which we're spending significantly more money on, that expectation drops immediately. But with Windows Virtual Desktop, we're able to deliver that expectation. We're able to deliver the applications and the data to the user, regardless of where they are or what device that they're on. But the beauty of that is it's the same experience. They're getting Windows 10 wherever they are. So it's Windows 10 on their iPhone, it's Windows 10 on their laptop, it's Windows 10 on their tablet or desktop. It's consistent. And what that means is we're saving time, all of that lost time in management of different devices and different experience and different expectation. They're all gone as well, and we're saving a lot of time. So it gives that consistent experience across devices. Another key scenario we see on a regular basis is around business continuity. And, you know, touch wood, things are starting to return to normal. Businesses are starting to get back to operating from within the office. But certainly in our surveys, we've seen an expectation that more and more people will want to work remotely, be it a number of days per week or thereabouts. But often when we look at business continuity, the message I hear from a lot of companies is that, yes, we have backup in place. And yes, we have a level of disaster recovery in place. Our servers are replicated somewhere else, be it to the cloud or be it to another location. But again, similar to the nuance from earlier on, we've actually forgotten in that scenario how our end users can actually access those systems. So in a scenario where we have to invoke some level of disaster recovery, how are our end users going to access our key systems? And at Action Point, we've developed a service called Action Point Cloud Site, which leverages Windows Virtual Desktop to say, well, we have our servers replicated. That's great. If we're in a scenario where we have some level of disaster, our servers are no longer accessible for whatever reason, our on-premise infrastructure has failed, we now are addressing both sides of the business continuity coin. We're able to rebuild our infrastructure in the cloud or get our infrastructure, our back-end systems up and running in the cloud, but we're also able to deliver an effective solution for our employees to access those systems. So now they can access their key applications and access their data on demand, regardless of where they are and regardless of what device they're on. So again, we're delivering true business continuity versus the old way of delivering, well, it's just a level of disaster recovery for my servers, but it turns out my employees can't access or use their applications in any shape or form. A couple of other scenarios just as food for thought. Where else does Windows Virtual Desktop sit? So really around businesses that have safety and regulation at their heart. So financial services, healthcare, government, where you want to keep your data centralized. You really don't want your data getting outside of your infrastructure in any shape or form. You don't want it going out over email. You don't want it going out over USB. You don't want someone downloading it locally. Windows Virtual Desktop addresses a large part of that. Likewise, if you've got an elastic workforce, and we're starting to see a lot of that at the moment, where some businesses have contracted dramatically, and over time they will scale back up to where they are. As well as that, many businesses are looking at this as an opportunity to say, well, actually now is a good time for me to merge with another company or maybe acquire my competitor that is downsized over time. And our previous systems really haven't been able to cope with that flexibility. With Windows Virtual Desktop, you know, I may have 500 users using the system today, or 50 users using the system today, and I might want 1,000 tomorrow, or I might have 200 using the systems, using my systems today, and I might want to scale that back down to 20 next week. So I'm able to do that very, very easily on a day-by-day basis with Windows Virtual Desktop. Scale up my environment to exactly what I need it for, be it to take on a new business, new employees, or to have seasonal and contractual staff as well. As well as that, we're able to fit in specialized workloads, scenarios where people need 3D software, CAD drawings, those kind of things. Often that presented numerous challenges across expensive equipment, licensing, how do people actually get access to that if they're working from home, or if they're working on a customer site or something like that. With Windows Virtual Desktop, I'm able to deliver dedicated infrastructure that supports 3D, that supports CAD, and supports those specialized workloads. And I'm able to deliver that on demand. So for example, a user who uses some kind of 3D software or CAD once a week, they're not going to need a full-blown dedicated high-spec desktop 24/7. So I'm able to deliver them an application that is appropriate for them when they need it. I can deliver their normal run-of-the-mill applications, Word, Excel, Outlook, whatever, Monday to Friday. And then, on Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, if they need that specialized infrastructure, I can easily spin that up and deliver it to them. So not only from a flexibility point of view, but also from a cost point of view, I'm being very, very flexible. I alluded to it earlier on that security is built in from the ground up. And if we think of that scenario that I showed earlier on, in terms of the sprawl in our IT infrastructure, really we have to ask the question, where is my data? And if we ask that question today and really are comfortable with it, as we move to Windows Virtual Desktop, we get a much better answer. We get a much better sense of security as well. So if we look at Windows Virtual Desktop, fundamentally it's built on Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure spans, I think currently it's 61 regions globally. I know the slide says 58, but it's a global network of data centers with certifications, that pretty much no other cloud provider can match. And certainly us as a business, if we think about our existing infrastructure sitting on premise or sitting in the corner of the office in a cabinet somewhere, we're not able to deliver any level close to that level of certification on what we're running right now. As well as that, the security is built in, so our attack surface is reduced. We're not exposing ports up to the outside worlds that previously would have been open targets for rogue hackers and people to get in at. We're able to deliver granular control to key parts of it. So in other words, I'm able to obviously give my users access to the systems that they need access to, but I'm also able to delegate control to, maybe it's a third-party vendor who need access to update their software, or maybe it's an IT admin who needs to maintain a database for me. So I'm able to get very, very granular on the control around that. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper on the technical side, and then we'll zoom back out and we'll go into a demo. But Windows Virtual Desktop, it's made up of 3 key pieces. On the left-hand side is the client end. That's your end users, your devices you're coming in at. In the center part is the piece that Microsoft manage and that they deliver as a service. So it's all those complex parts that were previously very, very painful to manage. Your broker, your gateway, the diagnostics access, the database associated with that. That's delivered as a service, so highly redundant, highly available. And on the right-hand side there, the desktops, the apps, the data, that's where that's all managed. So 3 key pieces to that. And the end user experience, it's leveraging the services and solutions that Microsoft use across a number of products already, not only the Microsoft Azure, but also the 365 infrastructure, even as far as their Xbox infrastructure uses this same authentication methods, the same way of accessing data. So as an end user, I come in from my device, I get authenticated with Azure Active Directory, the same way I do for my 365 or for my Xbox or for whatever Microsoft service I'm using. The service, the SaaS service with the brokerage and the gateway, then delivers my desktop or my application or my data to me, regardless of the device. So very, very seamless end user experience. So the benefits over the old way of thinking, over older versions of RDS, I alluded to it earlier on, it is a Windows 10 environment. We're also able to deliver something called FX Logics, which means we're containerizing the profiles, and I'll touch on that in a bit more detail shortly. It's a vastly simple process. It's a much more secure process. And now we have an environment that is elastic and scalable. So again, we're no longer tied to that rigidness that was with our previous on-prem environments In other words, I'm limited by the number of servers I have, by the type of firewall I have, by the number of licenses I have. Those limits are completely taken away and become much more flexible when we're in our Windows Virtual Desktop environment. So solving the profile problem, and this was, one of a number of key issues that always existed when we built out virtual desktops environments, that an end user's profile, where their Outlook set and where their search history set and various other elements, often ballooned in size and got completely out of control. And thus, when an end user logged in, they could be sitting there for 5-10 minutes waiting for a server to become available, their profile to load to that server, and to get ready to get up and running. With Windows Virtual Desktop and a technology built into it called FSLogix, all of that gets eliminated. So my profile is containerized, so it's put in its own little silo, and that can be attached to any server that I'm accessing or any app that I'm accessing. And what does that mean? So it means that my login time is going to be dramatically increased. It means that things that were difficult before, like Windows search and things like that, are going to be available to me. But it also means that applications can be delivered to me very, very easily. And even down to the level of different versions of Java. So often, our support desk, for example, will get phone calls about people using their banking online and their Java version has just been updated and they have a certificate and it's just not working. By using Windows Virtual Desktop, all of those problems are eliminated because I'm able to have multiple versions of Java. I'm able to have multiple applications dedicated to certain users in certain scenarios. So a lot of those problems are completely eliminated. I'm also able to deliver my file storage much more efficiently. So again, leveraging the power of Azure, I'm able to say, well, actually, I don't need to worry about managing a file server, about all the nuances that go with delivering a network share to my end user across patching that server, securing that server, maintaining that server, potential downtime on that server. I'm also able to deliver my network share as a service, so as a managed component within Windows Virtual Desktop. So again, it takes another layer of complexity out of the equation and makes it much easier for me. Lastly, on the technical side, one of the other key challenges we had was those applications. So how do we deliver applications to end users and how do we do it efficiently and fast? So with Windows Virtual Desktop, we're able to say, well, actually, we can containerize the application the same way we can containerize the end user's profile, and we can actually deliver that key application to the user regardless of where they are. So if I'm someone in marketing and I need PowerPoint or my marketing tool, well, that marketing profile and that marketing application gets attached the second that user logs in. Likewise, if I'm a high-end user, an engineer using CAD or Visual Studio or something like that, that application gets attached to my session the second I log in. So from a security point of view, we're easily able to deliver the applications and the services that the end user needs to them, and only those applications. So if we have a new person starting on finance team, we can easily deliver out the accounts package and various other systems that they need in an instant by simply adding that user into the group. Likewise, if we have a new call center team starting, right, how are we actually going to deliver applications to them? Well, by simply using app attach and FSLogix, we're able to deliver that very easily. Simply add the users in, set them up as normal with their username and passwords, associate them with the call center group that has applications associated with it, and we're able to deliver key applications to them. So zooming back out, and I know I got a little bit technical there, let's see what it looks like in action. And I suppose the beauty of Windows Virtual Desktop is that it's actually quite simple. So I'm just going to jump out of the PowerPoint for a second. So you can see my screen there, and essentially what I have is I have a remote desktop client here running with my key applications. So if we think of a scenario, you have your new call center team or a finance team or something like that. The typical scenario is, right, we have to purchase devices for them. Let's say it's a laptop or a desktop. We then have to sit them down with one of our IT team or IT provider. They have to set it up. They have to install the various applications that that person needs, and they have to go through a whole rigmarole and spend an awful lot of time actually setting that up. Likewise, if a member of our team is changing devices, okay, then we have to get a new device from IT. They have to go sometimes copying profiles, copying my documents, all the information that I had set up, the desktop that I had set up in a certain way, and ultimately I'll get that device back, and chances are it's probably missing a few applications or something like that. With Windows Virtual Desktop, I'm delivering my applications, my key line of business applications, and my desktop as well to the end users, all through one app. So if we think of the scenario here where I have, let's assume this is a blank laptop, I have nothing installed on it. but by logging in once, all my applications are available to me. So if I need to use Word, I double click on Word as normal. It goes in, authenticates for the first time, and I'll get my password here. And connects in and allows me to access my application very, very easily. From an end user point of view, and this is a key part of it, what you've just seen there is that Word has opened. You know, from maybe the audience point of view here is so what? Word opens natively on my laptop. The advantage here is that this is Word delivered fully in the cloud, but from the end user, there's no installation of Word locally. There's no data coming locally to the user. They're just using the Windows Virtual Desktop version of Word, which is the exact same one that they're always used to. So from an experience point of view, it is the application, it is my normal Word application that I've always used. Likewise, I could use my CRM system, my PDF system, my Excel, my file browser. I can open up and get access to my files. But we can even make it simpler for the end user and say, well, actually, you know, while we have an application delivering these your key apps here, well, that also sits in the start menu here, just as normal. So as an end user, I have an expectation that my IT or my applications should be simple to access. And within Windows Virtual Desktop, it is, because they're here sitting in my start menu as normal. But yet from a business point of view and an IT point of view, none of these are actually installed locally. It's given the appearance of being installed locally, but actually they're just running Windows Virtual Desktop in the background. And I'm given that full experience. So I can use this application experience where I'm on my laptop or my desktop, or even my mobile device, and I can open all of these applications. And I think that's a key component, and maybe in our next webinar, I'll actually demo that in real time, is that I could open up my iPhone with my remote desktop client on it, and I can run ConnectWise, I can run Internet Explorer, I can run Microsoft Paint if I really wanted to, on my iPhone, on my tablet. So whatever application the business has, I can now access, I can use anywhere. Likewise, I can also use the browser. So, you know, if maybe I'm in a client's office, maybe I'm, you know, been seconded to a client's office, and they obviously want me using their systems, but they're only going to give me access to a browser. They're not going to allow me to install any specialist software. So within the browser, I can access my Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and I can go, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to access my Excel, my company Excel, because that has our company data on it, on our network share, and I'm going to use that in full. So the same scenario, I'm still fully within the browser here. I get prompted for my credentials, which I'll pop in here now. And what this will do behind the scenes, it'll actually kick me out of the other connection, the previous connection I had on my desktop, and it'll bring me into the full-blown browser connection. But you can see actually what it's done there, as well as opening up my Excel, it's given me my Word, which I opened there a few minutes ago. It's given me my File Explorer, which I opened a few minutes ago in my other session. So it's given me that same experience that I had before. But the beauty of this is that it's all in the browser. Again, in that scenario where I'm on a device that's not mine, maybe it's a client's device, or I'm in some scenario where I need to access our corporate resources, our corporate systems, I'm able to do that. But I'm able to do that within the confines of the security that we've set up in the background. So no data is leaving our centralized system. No applications are leaving our centralized system, but me as the end user, I'm able to work fully as normal. So that gives you a sense of the user experience, and I suppose how simple it is. So I can deliver full-blown desktop to an end user where they can log into a desktop, or I can deliver key line of business applications, and those line of business applications are appropriate for me. So if I'm in finance, I'm going to get my finance applications. If I'm in marketing, I'll get my marketing applications. If I'm in sales, I'll get my sales applications, etc., etc. So it becomes very, very easy for you as a business to control things and decide, okay, I need to push out the latest version of Excel or the latest version of our accounts package to everyone in the company. How do I do that? Well, literally by installing it centrally and then adding that application into that user group, or the all staff or the finance user group. And the next time someone logs in their remote desktop environment, they'll see that application appear. They'll see it appear on the start menu, and they'll be able to work as normal. Again, we no longer care about what device they're running, how powerful the device is, does it have X amount of RAM, or all of those kind of nuances that were difficult to deliver before. So if we switch back into the presentation for a second, we've seen the demo in action. Again, you know, with Windows Virtual Desktop, it is so simple. You know, we've just made the end user experience so much better and so much more simple. And if we look at that, scenario, it is all about our end users. Back to my very first slide about, delivering applications simply and effectively, delivering data simply and effectively. But in summary, rather than that scattered approach of not knowing where our data is, clumsy applications, cumbersome processes, we've made our end users happy regardless of what devices they are, but we've centralized the management of our applications and desktops. We've centralized our security, thus making everything better on both sides of the coin. So in summary, our applications delivered to all users on any device. Updates are no longer a headache. Consistent experience regardless of the device. We're now able to deliver true business continuity because, again, by leveraging Windows Virtual Desktop, we're able to say, well, actually, DR is there. Your servers have been DR'd to the cloud or wherever they are, and now we have the facility for the end users to access those key line of business applications and data. So next steps, where do you start with this? If you're looking at this and going, actually, that's relevant to me, we have a couple of business applications that are painful. It would be great if we could take them off our on-premise infrastructure and just deliver them. Absolutely, we can start with that. And we've done this for a number of clients where we said, let's do a proof of concept on one, maybe two apps, and let's see how they work. And I think the beauty of Windows Virtual Desktop, it is flexible like that. If you still have an investment on your on-premise infrastructure, absolutely, you can still run with that. But you can gradually start to move applications into Windows Virtual Desktop one at a time. Again, maybe starting with a certain application or starting with a certain team. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to do that. Likewise, if you want to talk more about business continuity, we're more than happy to talk to you about that. And as well as that, if you want to look at a full-blown Windows Virtual Desktop solution, which again, a number of our clients have done, moved their entire on-premise infrastructure into the cloud, but it's still centralized, much more secure than it ever was. And now they have the flexibility to scale up and down, and really remote working and people working from home and from different locations is no longer an issue for the business. That is part of business as usual right now. And with that, in the time we have, I'm going to wrap up and I suppose hand it over to questions. I see a few coming in there over the chat box.
Brilliant, Finian. Thank you very much for another good presentation. Very interesting world we're entering now with solutions like Windows Virtual Desktop. Before I jump to the Q&A, and I encourage anyone to get their questions in, we're here for as long as we're needed. I'll just launch the poll and maybe just review some of the challenges that people are experiencing. So just a quick reminder, what is the biggest challenge you have experienced in delivering effective remote access to your team at short notice? And those are the options there. So the standout one really, Finian, is increased IT support demands from end users, security concerns, of course, poor performance legacy equipment, VPNs. I guess, how is Windows Virtual Desktop mitigating or improving increased IT support demand from end users? And maybe put that in a scenario for us.
Yeah, so I would have alluded to that during the actual presentation today in terms of, that it's that end user expectation. So if I'm an end user and I've been in the office and, I log in and I double click on my desktop and I double click on my applications, I have an expectation that that's going to work a certain way. And when people are working remotely at the moment, they're connecting in using VPNs, which is cumbersome. Some applications work well, others may take a long time. We see that kind of circle spinning round and round while people wait for it. And often the first port of call is to pick up the phone to IT and say, hey, I can't access my applications, it's not working. So IT demand has gone up dramatically, but I think it was there to a certain degree beforehand, with people having problems with applications. A new application is rolled out and it works for 9 out of 10 people, and the one person who it doesn't work for is the MD of the company, and someone has to take away their device for half a day and reinstall it and do a lot of other things to try and get that application work. So Windows Virtual Desktop actually takes away all of those issues. Because everything is centralized, we no longer have those headaches. The experience that someone has in the office is the same experience as someone has out of the office. And likewise, in that scenario where we need to think about or consider taking away the MD's laptop, that doesn't exist anymore, because we're not installing anything locally. It's all centralized. So many headaches are taken away, and it makes, I suppose, the IT team's job of, those mundane tasks, an awful lot easier.
Very good. Thanks for that, Finian. I have a question in here from Dervla, who's a solicitor. We use a content management system, WordPress, Wix, something like that. If VPI, or sorry, maybe that's Windows Virtual Desktop. If WVD is utilized, can the CMS be added to a profile as an app or login?
Absolutely, yeah. So again, this can be something that maybe you need to deliver to uh, a number of staff, or maybe even you, if it's a content management system, maybe you have external providers involved with this as well. You're bringing in a contractor to do some copywriting for you, or you're bringing in an external technical expert. By using Windows Virtual Desktop, you're then able to deliver that app to that person regardless of where they are. So absolutely, content management system or even case management system. There's many of them out there, the Legal Evolves, the Key Houses, and many, many more. Absolutely can all be delivered through this.
Very good, very good. Please do get your questions in, guys. We're happy to answer them. Thanks for that one, Dervla. I guess getting started, Finian, I know you touched on it there at the end. So, what subscriptions do I need, or what does what does that kind of initial Windows Virtual Desktop setup look like?
Yeah, it's actually quite straightforward. Like a lot of businesses right now are already using Microsoft 365, so that's actually half the battle. If you're using Microsoft 365, the licensing for Windows Virtual Desktop is included in there, and after that, then it's I suppose a cost that actually depends on what application you're running, how much resources, and how many users are using that application. So it is very, very straightforward to do it, and we've worked with a number of clients lately. A scenario only last week where we had a client that had a very, very old legacy app that was extremely cumbersome for them to install. Anytime they upgraded a server, made any changes on premise, this application was extremely cumbersome to get back up and running. But not only that, they actually had 5 different versions of that application because of their different departments and different businesses. So we did a POC for them to take that application off their on-premise, put it into Windows Virtual Desktop, and deliver the 5 versions of them. And straight away, that eliminated so many headaches for them, but it also made the members of staff who were using that, gave them the application that didn't work over remote connection previously. Now it works over remote connection. So in a very, very simple process, I think that process itself took about a week and a half from the first conversation to actually getting that application ready. And we were able to deliver a very, very efficient POC.
That's, yeah, minimum fuss as well. Another thing that's interesting is that, like, a lot of companies are maybe looking to onboard new staff. A lot of people are still hiring, or maybe staff have changed. I guess IT onboarding has always been a cumbersome, has always been a factor we've had to include in our onboarding costs and stuff. Just how effective is Windows Virtual Desktop in that scenario? I've decided on my new staff member. I've agreed terms. How where does Windows Virtual Desktop come into that?
Yeah, we actually had a conversation only last week with the new customer of ours that they're expanding quite rapidly, and we were talking with their IT admin there, and the comment came back that on average I'm spending 2 to 3 hours per new employee setting them up. And really, when we dove much deeper on that, our first response was, really, why are you wasting so much time in doing that? And it was a case of, well, this group of employees need these applications, and I have to tweak things a certain way for this department, and I have to do it a different way for someone else. So there was no standard approach there, really. And to pay an IT admin, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 grand a year to spend 2 to 3 hours a day almost, given the way they were scaling, just setting up desktops is madness. So at Windows Virtual Desktop, we're able to say, well, actually, let's start putting some of the applications into Windows Virtual Desktop, so you don't actually have to worry about installing them, about setting them up, about doing all the nuances that was involved in that employee onboarding. So even for the onesies and twosies where you're gradually building up, or for where you're actually bringing in a large cohort of new employees, or maybe you're taking over a new business, to actually be able to deliver the key line of business applications to them in a heartbeat is saves a huge amount of time and a huge amount of cost for the business. So again, that scenario where we spoke to that customer last week, all of a sudden, it could have been close to 50% of their time was suddenly freed up once we
Wow.
spoke about Windows Virtual Desktop. So that's 50% of their time dedicated to doing something else, helping the team, maybe helping them with training, maybe delivering IT more efficiently. But so many benefits. We're back to the business in that scenario, and many others.
Yeah, I think I can speak for everyone. We could all do with some extra time from at any time, really. Okay, so that kind of I don't have any more questions. I don't see anything else here in the chat bot. I guess people might digest this information a little bit later. We'll be sending out the recording, so you can refer to that. Maybe distribute it to your teams internally. But certainly it's an exciting and certainly a time-saving future with Windows Virtual Desktop to look forward to. Just a couple of notes from us. We're running these webinars quite regularly. Many of you will be on our mailing list, so we'll keep you posted on them. We're looking at a back to work series, continuing on from our remote working series. Some very interesting insights and applications there. So certainly keep an eye out for that. We're also launching our virtual training. So we're focused on productivity with Microsoft Teams, but we also have some Power BI and cybersecurity courses in the pipeline there as well. So for any information on that, do check out actionpoint.ie/academy. It's the email address there or it's the URL there on screen. Yeah, I suppose I haven't much more left to say. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you to Finian for taking the time out for a very good presentation and demonstration. I was your host, Peter Hunt, and we'll see you on a webinar again soon. Thank you.